I'd like to welcome our guests to the Fireside Chat, Predicting and Planning for Tomorrow. I'm Peter Turney, President of CT Global Solutions and your moderator today. We have two co-hosts for the Fireside Chat, the SAS Institute and CT Global Solutions. SAS is the world's leading analytics company and the highest rated company for forecasting and demand and supply planning software in the world. SAS Analytics helps you turn your data into intelligence. CT Global is a SAS partner, and we're subject matter experts in demand and supply planning. As a SAS partner, CT Global's job is to amplify the value of SAS and put that value to work for our customers. We help you turn intelligence into profits. Our goal is to help you create more accurate plans and decisions to ensure business and financial success. We have two panelists for today's chat. Ed Katz is a principal consultant at CT Global and a 20-year veteran of SAS. Ed specializes in demand and supply planning and has been involved in over 50 demand and supply chain deployments over his career. He is a passionate and knowledgeable speaker on these topics. Welcome, Ed.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And our second panelist is Brittany Bullard. She is a solutions and analytic consultant specializing in retail at SAS. She is author of the book Style and Statistics, The Art of Retail Analytics. And by the way, she's promised me that she has a second book coming out soon. Brittany truly understands retail strategy. She is a leader in using advanced analytics to solve business challenges and to drive business success. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you, Peter. Now that you said that out loud, I definitely need to finish that book.
I didn't know. Pressure. No
problem. I didn't know writing a book in a pandemic would be so hard, but it is almost done and will be out next year. But thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to that new book too. The Fireside Chat is an intimate group of peers sharing their challenges and hope for demand and supply planning. As moderator of the Fireside Chat, I will ask questions of our panelists and also take questions from the audience. If you have a question for the panelists, please enter the question into the meeting chat box. As an option, if you'd like to speak directly to the panelists, please raise your hand. When I acknowledge you, you will need to unmute your line so the panelists and the other guests can hear you. And you can also express your opinion via the polling questions that will appear on your screen during the Fireside Chat. We'll be sure to share the results of the poll after the call. So let's get going with the questions for the panelists. I'd like to start with a question for Brittany. What are some of the challenges that you see in retail today?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that's impacted retail and impacted all of our lives is COVID-19. That has really taken the retail industry by storm. And when we think about this pandemic, it has created a large amount of store closures. They've had to close stores because of government restrictions and not knowing when exactly those stores are going to reopen. And then there's been subsequent waves. So that's been one extreme challenge for the retail industry. I would say also, even once those stores are back open, there is a total new consumer shopping behavior. We all even see it in our own daily lives. I never thought that hand sanitizer in the little small bottles, not the big bottles, were going to be something that I was hunting down everywhere for my 10-year-old son to take to school. So even us in our daily lives are changing our shopping patterns. We're going to stores less frequently. We are shifting to e-commerce, and that's created a huge amount of challenges for retail. The retail industry was on a digital transformation at a glacial pace for the last couple of years, and this has really had to reignite that. And retailers have had to do what they plan to do over the course of the future 3 years in the last 6 months. So it's been a challenge, but I see retail also being so resilient in the face of these challenges.
Thank you, Brittany. Ed, do you have any insights to share about how to solve some of the challenges that Brittany outlined?
Yeah, I sure do, Peter. The challenges are great. And by the way, Brittany, I think if I was to write a book, my book would be called The Boat Sank. And that is because if you hear the backstory to this, Brittany has heard this story before, but you all haven't, is that years ago when I was a demand planner for a major corporation, periodically we would get a call that said the boat sank because we were dealing with a lot of imported product. And if something got, in one case, the boat sank. So a lot of the product that was on that vessel was supposed to be cross-docked, sent to customers or into warehouses to satisfy customer demand, et cetera, et cetera. And periodically, a few times during the year, you'd get a fire in a warehouse, you'd get a boat sinking, you'd get, the wrong product, a lead time that changed. And it was a disruption. And you'd go way back when in the mainframe world, as you can see, I've got gray hair, to the IT department and say, what do I need to substitute? What do I need to expedite? What do I need to buy? How much is it going to cost? Et cetera, et cetera. And, in those days and even today, it's like, wait a week and we'll tell you. So the rate of change today about the quote, the boat sinking or the rate of change of disruption is occurring every day, every week for various product categories, because not only do you have disruption on the demand side, as Brittany so eloquently stated, but you've got disruption on the supply side, trying to fulfill those customer orders and measure up those warehouses, because factories sometimes are closing or the ships are late or not getting the product that you actually want and changing sizes and things of that nature. So there's challenges fulfilling that demand when you do get the demand and trying to figure out, what do I substitute? What do I substitute? What do I expedite? How much is it going to cost? Who are my most important customers to allocate the product to? Or when I talk to our customers today who are using the demand supply planning, really occur like every day, every week. So those are the challenges. And to have an interactive system that can alert you to where those shortages are going to occur or those overstocks or how to transfer products is really, the differentiator for having an excellent supply chain and in a world of rate of change.
Thank you, Ed. These challenges that both you and Brittany have been outlining, you often remind me, Ed, that of the importance of data. And so my question is, if you're a demand and supply planner and you want to put in analytics and tools to be able to resolve these challenges and work your way through all these constant disruptions, how do we make sure that we have the right data quality, the right data, and be able to leverage that data for better planning and decisioning?
Well, Peter, data to me is the keystone of the project these days. It's less so analytics, because maybe later we'll talk about the high degree of automation that analytics provides today, and the automated model building. But the keystone to any analytics project is the data. And many clients come to Brittany and I and the other implementation partners and say, oh yeah, we've got data, we've got a data lake, we've got a data warehouse, our data's over here, our data's over there. But the data has to be aligned, to demand. So if you've got causal factors like price, promotion, inventory outages, outliers, and things of that nature, that data has to be aligned in a hierarchy, in a methodology to take advantage of that in analytics. So data quality, again, aligning data, missing values, duplicates and things of that nature, flagging them early, and automating that. Again, another story that we often have is is the client will say our demand planners spend 50% of their time just getting data to try to make decisions. So automating that data, aligning that data, ensuring data quality is probably the keystone to any project. It's almost secondary to the analytics, believe it or not. I don't know if you agree with me, Britt.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And I would also add, in the retail world, traditionally it was always looking at internal data, your location sales, your location inventory, and you use that to forecast. And now we're seeing that your internal data is really just a portion of the picture, because just looking at the internal data, you just see stores close, 0 sales for a certain amount of time. And so we're working with a lot of our retail and CPG and manufacturing companies to understand what are those additional external data sources. So thinking about things like the epidemiological models that are being used. And we've been able to even layer in those models as well as Google search data to even additionally increase accuracy and giving me a bigger picture as to what's really going on to help shape that demand into the future. So even looking at your external data is something that we've been seeing as a huge win. And we even have on our GitHub site different models and these epidemiological models that you can actually access for free. So we will absolutely send you information if you're interested in that. But really, it's all about data, data, data.
So Brittany, thank you. And I can totally understand the value of adding these external variables, but they do add data and they do add complexity. So is there a role for artificial intelligence and machine learning in helping companies do this with relative ease rather than being overburdened?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where, SaaS is really shifting their technology approach to being more democratizing analytics and enabling the ability to take advantage of this without having to have a whole team of data scientists to do data quality through our data quality tools and drag and drop capabilities. But also with machine learning, it's taking that data and really helping to find new areas of helping improve. As Ed mentioned with his boat sink, I have a similar story when I was a dress planner and I had a sprinkler system go off in one of my stores and completely ruin all of the inventory. But many of us are having challenges getting inventory from these CPG companies and from these different supply chain issues. So leveraging things like product substitution and taking all of that data and being able to run a model to say, what's the likelihood if we can't find this item, what is another item that we have that has high substitutability based on the data? And then you're able to leverage that to mitigate your out of stocks, because at least you've got a second option for your customer. And then you're also able to even leverage that on your e-commerce website. I don't know how many times I've gone on a website looking for something and they've been out of stock, and had they recommended a second option, I would have absolutely taken advantage of that. So it not only helps with out of stocks and capturing that missed opportunity, but from a customer and shopping, it increases that customer experience and lessens their frustration.
Yes, Brittany, I can appreciate that customers will prefer to have some positive response in real time in terms of their needs. But I guess patience is in reality is one of the virtues that you have to have as a consumer. But in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning, let me ask Ed, is there anything else you'd like to add to Brittany's comments in terms of using AI and ML?
Yeah, one word, and capitalized, bold, and italics and underlined, is automation. Automation today is so key. We have a lot of freeware out there, R and Python, et cetera, that can, manually build statistical models if you're a data scientist, but, often go stale as the rate of change increases. So automation of the creation of these models, I think, is what's really key. And when I talk about automation, if you see the product someday, it's presenting the data and then creating the models that are unique to that time series at that time with the causal factors and promotions and events and possibly even outliers that are unique to that, again, especially with that rate of change. So creating models on the fly without the need for a statistician, where the data scientist can kind of focus on high error products that the system couldn't create a good forecast for, instead of touching every SKU combination. I'll tell you a story from yesterday. This is only what, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's Wednesday, but Monday, Tuesday, I was with a client and they completely restated their hierarchies, because they're rationalizing products due to COVID, not carrying certain sizes, and not servicing certain stores anymore in their region that may have closed temporarily. And all that they had to do to restate their hierarchies and create new forecasts and new models was to restate the hierarchy, align the history and causal factors associated with it, and created new forecasts. So again, automation is the key. Automating and creating models that are unique to the historical and causal data at the time that you're doing it.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I was in retail, I actually implemented the SAS forecasting engine. And at the time I went to school for chemistry, I didn't even have a background in forecasting, and the ability for that engine to go through and do what we call a champion challenge and automatically pick the best fit model enabled our business to take advantage of forecasting without having to have that data scientist team.
Yes, thank you, Brittany. And Ed, you mentioned automation, and maybe there's a broader perspective on automation. Maybe we could call it infrastructure, but very often we see companies that have the exact opposite of automation and a solid infrastructure. They are tied up in knots, literally, with spreadsheets and manual data work. How important is it to have a solid infrastructure underpinning demand and supply planning to get the results that you want?
It's important, but every journey begins with a step. So you don't have to have, in my opinion, every causal factor and every promotion and everything aligned. Maybe you just start with simple time series for high priority items for your data. So you could work piecemeal on your data. There was a major corporation in the US that I worked on that literally had millions of time series. We started with the first 2,000 most important high profit, high volume items, improved their forecast. They got an immediate return on investment, even with just few, if any, causal factors. It took an effort to automate the data and to align the data, but because it was a piece, it proved to management that there was a significant return on investment if they were to improve their infrastructure and improve their automation with their infrastructure. And that's what happens. So sometimes, it could be a long journey, but it could begin with a small step, improving the infrastructure, but build it one brick at a time.
Yes, thank you, Ed. In fact, it reminds me that I've seen research that shows that very often in companies, the analysts spend 80% of their time on manual tasks and only 20% of the time doing analysis. And clearly, if you can swing that completely the opposite way, the value you're going to get is going to be exponentially higher.
Well, right, Peter. Again, I'm so full of stories, Brittany and I. One story is a client where the demand planners touched every SKU location combination every planning cycle. And oh my God, lots of human resource problems and morale problems because it just took so much to do it. With an improved baseline statistical forecast and something trustworthy, they were to manage by exception. So they, as you know, in a success story, started to only touch 30% of the items that were exceptions, and the other ones that had a high degree of accuracy within the range that was acceptable, they allowed to go through if they had knowledge of changes that need to be made. They certainly made them, but it improved their productivity, by quantum leaps.
Thank you, Ed. Success with demand and supply planning analytics, in our experience, requires executive sponsorship and involvement. So question for Brittany, how can a C-level executive digest and use analytic information? And how can she or he ensure the analytics are viable and actionable by her or his team?
Yeah, so it definitely takes a role from the top to really help with change management. And as Ed mentioned, having that infrastructure and that being able to consume those insights and analytics are really key in automating that. So being able to send that downstream so that they're, say in the retail world, their planners, buyers, allocators, they don't have to manually make those adjustments or review. They can review on exception. And where we see, buy-in is really being able to have those scorecards and dashboards so that they are tracking the accuracy and then gaining trust into that forecast so that they don't feel the need to manually touch every single item. And that enables automation. It enables people to do more with less, which everyone's trying to do right now with working from home and just keeping the lights on. So that's one way that a C-level can ensure that it's being utilized and consumed. But then also, if we think about it, it's really about the analytics are for everyone these days. Being able to take advantage of dashboards to see those insights, downstream consumption into other applications, but being able to leverage, as we've mentioned before, more drag and drop user interfaces so that C-levels aren't having to go and find these teams of people or smaller companies that want to do more with analytics. Now we're able to do that. Gone are the days of needing to code or know how to write different algorithms to take advantage of it. And that's really, I think, the most exciting thing in technology in the retail world today is it's really becoming something for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Ed, do you have anything to add to this topic of engaging business leaders, planners, decision makers?
I agree. I could tell you again, going back to other cases that I've had to deal with. Sometimes change is difficult for some people, and I would say the word executive sponsor for a project is, let me say again, capitalized, bold, underlined, and italic. is important from the customer side, identifying key success factors, and aligning the business goals to disaggregate down to right down to the planner and inventory control. But a lot of people don't trust the number and want to do overrides and add bias. So we've had to add analytics many times to have scorecards for folks to measure some bias and things of that nature. But executive sponsorship really starts at the top and allows everybody to buy into the project.
Yeah, and I'd add to that too, having the ability to communicate from the top what is the overall goal, because a lot of people are afraid of forecasting because they're afraid of job security. And so if you're scorecarding and measuring the accuracy and getting that buy-in, then you're giving your team back time to be more strategic, to really start to understand more of new businesses that they could think about, or new product lines, or new ways of merchandising versus doing these monotonous types of tasks that we can automate with analytics. So being able to show that it's not just taking away a job, but it's giving them time back to do more of the fun stuff is another way where we've been able to really help with change management for many retailers.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. You talk about forecast accuracy. If we get the forecast accuracy right, I presume there's the potential for a significant impact down the supply chain, the inventory, the assortments that you have, and those kinds of things. What about that? Is that how do companies make sure they get those gains and benefits?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Britt. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that as you have a more accurate sales plan, you're able to better align your inventory, and also being able to increase the accuracy is going to increase your prediction of sales. So I've worked with a grocer in Russia recently, where we were able to increase their profitability for their drinks department, for example, by 18% increase in margin. So that's, margin on the table that you can gain from having a more accurate forecast.
Yeah, forecast accuracy in supply chain 101 is, I call it a three-legged stool. The most important leg is the forecast accuracy. Just picture the tighter those confidence limits, the tighter the accuracy within lead time, the less inventory you have to carry in order to cover the second leg of the stool, which is the service level. And if many of you are in manufacturing and CPG, sometimes those service level requirements by the Walmarts and Woolworths and CVS's of the world are 98, 99%. So if you're carrying a 90% forecast accuracy, you're carrying a lot of inventory in order to cover that error. If there's a 99% service level, and of course the other thing is lead time. That's the third leg of the stool. If there's a long lead time, again, you have to kind of hold more inventory in order to cover your service level. But again, forecast accuracy is absolutely number one. In the world of CPG, major clients who've had 2 or 3 or 4% increases in forecast accuracy have saved 5 and 10% inventory because their service level requirements were 99%. So again, in some industries, even small increases in improvements in forecast accuracy yield huge results, especially in inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Ed. If I may, I'd like to pivot just briefly to a very important aspect of demand and supply planning, and that's the use of promotions. How can we be sure to select the best promotions and create the most positive impact on sales, market share, and profitability? Ed, do you want to kick that off?
Sure. Peter, you often say about the promotion management. I know my promotions work. I just don't know which 50% are really useful. So you've been saying that so often that I looked up who said it originally. It was a man by the name of John Wanamaker, who was a Philadelphia retailer, ran a series of department stores in Philadelphia. He said, I know 50% of my promotions work, I just don't know which 50%. So in those days, it was manual. Today, one of the side benefits of forecasting is that when you add causal factors, you add elasticity estimates to those causal factors. So in those cases, you can help determine, and we've got some really great case studies, by the way, and demonstrations of this with real data if anybody ever wants to see it. You can actually see the impact of promotions top to bottom, 1 to 10, on various product groups, regions, stores, et cetera, and that's number one. And number two is you can also do what's called optimization, where you could set a target. Do I want to increase market share, gross margin, profitability, revenue, inventory turn, et cetera, et cetera. You could set targets, and the system will recommend the kinds of not without human overrides, but recommend the kind of promotion. So the ultimate goal for some of you in the audience might be to optimize your trade spend. So you might have $100,000 to spend on marketing. How do I spend it? What's my goal? How do I want to spread that out? Is a side benefit of forecasting. It's called trade promotion management, promotion optimization, and the elasticity of your causal factors. Brittany, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think you did a good job on that one. I could talk promotion optimization all day long. It's
I know you can.
Always fun in retail.
Brittany taught me everything I know, actually.
Well, as we come towards the conclusion of the session, I'd like to ask Brittany and Ed each to share a success story that they've had with the audience. So, Brittany, do you want to go first, please?
Sure. So one of the projects that I've worked on recently, speaking of forecast accuracy increasing, is with a European retailer, and their MAPE their mean absolute percent error was about 60% for one of their categories, and they were just using their internal data. And as I mentioned in the beginning when we were talking about data, gone are the days of your internal data being the only point of reference. And so we added on to the model Google search trends. And that make went from 60% down to 12% just
Wow.
by adding that additional data. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's extremely impactful because it really helps you to see a different lens of what's going on outside of your own retail history. So that's one of my favorite success stories recently. And then also with that increase in accuracy, they're better able to increase their inventory sell through and turn and overall profitability. Top that one, Ed.
Yeah, that's a good one. I wasn't going to use that one. Mine, I have this like spinning wheel, and it's just kind of landing on one right now. There's so many to speak of. But one I'm reminded of, about 5 years ago, the client had a fairly significant ERP system, and it was doing a forecast, and there were folks there that said, "Oh, you're not really going to improve that forecast." So we said, "Okay, well, give us your data for a segment of products and warehouses," and we did what's called in a pilot a holdout sample. So we just kind of ran it through this automated machine learning forecast and showed them the forecast accuracy, and through that holdout sample, which in that case was 6 months of a previous year, with that improved forecast accuracy, showed them what the inventory could have been. The pilot for those products took all of a week or two, just a week or two, and showed empirical evidence of how forecast accuracy improved your inventory mix. And this was a customer that they're a manufacturer that was selling business to retail, and then the retailers were selling it on to the customers. We added to that eventually point of sale data. We added consumption data from the Home Depots and the Woolworths of the world, and it improved it even more. So that's a success story. Another success story, if I could just keep going for maybe 30 more seconds, is a major corporation where we did the same thing way back in 2006, when some of you may have just still been in high school. But we started with a very small division of a major corporation, improved their inventory through forecast accuracy and optimization. And eventually the solution went worldwide in 2015 and is still obviously in use today, and they're continuing to upgrade it. So again, journeys often begin with a step, and empirical proof is how you consume that inventory that forecast and the KPIs that it can improve in your business, whatever they may be.
So thank you, Brittany and Ed. And that last comment from you, Ed, it seems that I should ask one final question. You talked about the roadmap for that customer. Okay, how important is a custom roadmap for a particular company if they're going to succeed with demand and supply planning?
I want Brittany to be included in this, but my thing is every client is a snowflake, is unique when it comes to where they are on their analytics and supply chain journey, in terms of mature, immature data, in terms of where they are with analytics and where they are with a process. I could go on and on and on. So the best thing to do, I think, is just hold a half day to a day-long assessment with the SAS CT Global team, so that we can help understand where you are in terms of your data, your analytic maturity, where you should start, give you a deployment plan and an ROI. So I think it all starts with just a simple assessment, and it's not painful. It's not a 2-week exercise. It's just, depending on the size of the organization, anywhere from a half a day to maybe a day and a half at most. That would be my answer, Britt. I don't know about yours.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. What we really want to do is bring value quickly and create self-funding projects. So starting out with the biggest opportunity gives you the biggest bang for your buck and then helps to create that roadmap for you. So sometimes we get into a room and realize size is a bigger issue and we need to optimize their size before forecasting. So that's why an assessment is so great, but that's why we also love to really treat it as a partnership.
Okay, thank you, Brittany and Ed, for sharing your experiences and your thoughts and knowledge on demand and supply planning. It's been my pleasure to moderate this event. And I believe that an important takeaway from this fireside chat is that companies like you face unprecedented business challenges during the global pandemic. These challenges have rendered much of the forecasting that you've been doing at the best made it irrelevant and severely disrupted your supply chain. We have learned today that there are solutions to these problems. There is, I believe, a beacon of hope for all companies who seek to resolve these problems and to move their business forward. We look forward to helping you on this important journey. And I'll close by wishing all of you best of luck, and please take care and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.